All right. Gonna call the meeting to order. Begin with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States
of America, to the
Republic of the States, one nation, under God.
Next is the adoption of the agenda. And after the agenda was published, I became aware that the basis for the executive session will be ORS 192.662F rather than ORS 192.662A. Without objection from the board, I move to amend the board agenda to reflect so. We move seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. I would also like to move that following the closed session of the board, that the board return to open session for discussion on board policy CBB, recruitment and appointment of superintendent. Is there a second? Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any further discussion on the agenda for today?
For my notes, I had down for 425 update on the health clinic. And so I don't know if that's something that we can get today, like something brief. Does it have to be a PowerPoint presentation?
Sure, and I did email the board with the update, so I could certainly just read that aloud to everybody.
Oh, okay, I didn't check.
Okay. Yep.
So we have a third item. Health clinic update.
Yeah, my recommendation would be to add it to work session, under work session.
Yeah, okay. So at
School-based health center update.
this health center update.
Mhm.
Do we need a motion for that?
Mhm.
Or maybe you want to make a motion?
Okay. I know to have all these problems there. The work session.
Second? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Okay. With no other changes are needed, I move to accept the agenda as amended. Second, all those in favor say aye. Aye, the agenda has been adopted. Okay, up next tonight, we have public comment. First is Alexander Afanasio. Hello. You see you have Russian and English, you can.
Actually,
I'll give the English version.
it's Russians. Окей, меня зовут Афанасьев Александр. Я живу в Woodburn уже более 30 лет. Я очень люблю наш город, наше сообщество. Мои дети начинали и закончили школы в нашем городе. Мои дети начинали учиться в славянской программе и закончили ее с хорошим английским и русским языком. Я горжусь, что мои дети не забыли наш язык, наши традиции, нашу культуру. Я благодарен всем учителям, нашему сообществу. Дети сегодня благополучно состоялись как личности в нашем сообществе. Сегодня я здесь, потому что я хочу, чтобы и мои внуки тоже изучали и не забывали наш язык, нашу культуру, наши традиции и чтили это все. Мы должны признавать и ценить важность сохранения культурного и языкового наследия. Это наследие обогащает не только ученика, но и школьное сообщество и общество в целом. Потеря родного языка дорого обходится и детям, и их семьям. На это влияет сообщество в целом, и, конечно, в счете на всю нацию. Обучение детей двухязычным имеет очень много преимуществ. И язык – это очень мощный инструмент, который может дать глубокое представление о семейной жизни, истории традиций. Дети, владеющие двумя языками, могут лучше понимать семейные истории. Владение языками также позволяет детям приобщаться к наследию своей семьи, читая семейные рецепты, истории, понимая традиционные песни и многое другое. Изучение нескольких языков способствует общему восприятию культуры и взаимопониманию. Традиции объединяют людей, укрепляют связи с друзьями и семьей. Самое главное для детей – это традиции, которые создают незабываемые воспоминания о семье и друзьях. В целом традиции обеспечивают здоровое понимание себя с юных лет. Мы, сообщество славянской культуры города Woodburn, доверяем наших детей и отдаем наших детей в руки профессионалов, чтобы наши дети выросли личностями и не забывали свои корни, язык, на котором они говорят, родные, не забывали традиции, на которых они выросли. Пожалуйста, поддержите наших детей, поддержите нашу программу, чтобы наши дети и внуки выросли полноценными гражданами.
Okay, so I'm just gonna read what he said, but in English. And so if you don't know, he was actually one of the first people that helped advocate for the Russian program 25 years ago, so 26. Good evening, my name is Alexander Afanasyev. I have lived in Woodburn for over 30 years, and I love our city and our community very much. Our children started and graduated from our schools in our city. My children started studying in the Slavic program and graduated with good English and Russian. I am proud that my children have not forgotten our language, our traditions, and our culture. I am grateful to all the teachers in our community that my children are successful today and have taken place as individuals in our community. Today I am here because I really want my grandchildren to also not forget the language spoken by all their relatives, observe the traditions and culture of their relatives. We must recognize and appreciate the importance of preserving culture and linguistic heritage. This legacy enriches not only the student, but also the school community and society as a whole. The loss of their native language is costly for children and their families. It affects the community as a whole and ultimately the entire nation. Teaching children to be bilingual has many advantages. Language is a powerful tool that can give a deeper understanding of family history and tradition. Children who speak two languages can better understand family stories. Language proficiency also allows children to join the heritage of their family by reading family recipes, stories, understanding traditional songs, and much more. Learning several languages contributes to a common perception of culture and mutual understanding. Traditions unite people and strengthen ties with friends and family. The most important thing for children is that traditions create unforgettable memories of family and friends. In general, traditions provide a healthy understanding of oneself from a young age. We, the community of Slavic culture in the city of Woodburn, we put all of our trust of our children to you. We put our children in the hands of professionals so that our children grow up as individuals and do not forget their roots, the language spoken by their relatives, and do not forget their traditions on which they grew up. Please support our children, support and believe in the Russian program so that our children and grandchildren grow up to be full-fledged citizens.
And next is Elena Alagos.
Good evening, school board members and superintendent. My name is Elena Alagas, and I'm a parent of a student in Woodburn School District. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. Sorry if I stutter a little bit. I'm speaking tonight not only as a parent, but also as a parent committee member. We are very worried about future of Russian program in this district. Russian program being, as long as it's being a really helpful asset to our children and the future of our children. My daughter lost an opportunity to take IB class at the high school level this year, something that she worked for years of elementary school and the middle school. This is something where it's really close to me. She worked for it, she wanted it, and she couldn't have it. My son is losing opportunity to continue learning language. at the middle school level for the next year. And become a bilingual person, which is, in his age, he understands the value of the future being a bilingual person. The reason given is that there are not enough students that enroll for the program. As the parents, we have asked the district administrators for many years to help us solve the problem at the middle school level. We told administrators that the problem are what the problems are, and we offered the solutions, but nobody listened. Instead, the class is being cut and changes being made to the program without any knowledge for the parents or the community. We don't even know who makes the decision to cut IB classes or cut some at the middle school level. I remember we used to have 3 classes that children were taking in Russian at the middle school level. The Russian committee members asked for months from administrators to help us solve the problems. Well, I'm sorry, but I'll finish it up. As a parents and the taxpayers, we don't want to accept the reason that it's not enough money to buy a bilingual classes at the high school or hire social study teacher at the middle school. At least one, a social study class, and make that class as a core class, not the elective. That will open more perspectives for our children in the future. Thank you for your time.
Up next is Ina Shevchuk. And then Natalia will be reading the statement in English.
Здравствуйте, уважаемый совет. Меня зовут Инна Шевчук, и я мама 6-классницы Valor School. Я начну с того, что изначально мы с мужем отправили нашу дочь учиться в эту программу только из-за русского языка, хотя на тот момент она была уже принята в чартерную школу, и это школа более высокого уровня. Но выбрали мы в итоге школу Heritage именно из-за двуязычия, как и многие другие родители. На данный момент, насколько я понимаю, программа под угрозой, и наши дети рискуют не закончить полное обучение в P12 программе. В свое время нас уже потрясла новость о закрытии русской IB программы, на которую мы рассчитывали, и наши дети потеряли серьезный бонус для их будущего. В связи с этим я вынуждена просить вас от своего лица и от лица других родителей ввести дополнительный класс, например, Social Studies на русском языке в Middle School, который позволит заинтересовать и привлечь новых детей и вернуть уже ушедших из Russian Language Arts. Я совершенно точно знаю, что дети хотят учить русский язык, и уход многих из программы в данный момент имеет совершенно другие причины. Необходимо ввести дополнительные языковые классы на русском языке в Middle School, еще и для того, чтобы дети могли без стресса учиться в High School и справляться с программой там. Также у меня есть обеспокоенность по поводу того, что дети в Middle School в этом году выбирали классы на следующий год без извещения об этом родителей со стороны школы. Родители были изолированы от этого процесса и узнали уже по факту. Мы же, в свою очередь, хотим иметь возможность помочь и поддержать советом своих детей. Ведь выбор дальнейших классов – это не просто формальность для нас, это вклад в их будущие знания. Спасибо за ваше внимание, у меня все.
Okay, so I'm going to read it just translated. Hello, respected board members. My name is Ina Shevchuk. I am a mother of a 6th grader at Valor Middle School. I'll start with the fact that at the beginning, my husband and I sent our daughter to the Woodburn School District specifically for the Russian program, even though at that time she was enrolled into a charter school of higher rating. But ultimately, we picked Heritage because of the dual language program, like many other parents do. At this time, from my understanding, the program is in danger and our children risk not having a complete dual language Russian educational program pre-K through 12. In our time here, we have already been shocked and upset by the news that the IB program was closed, which we had counted on, and our children lost a major bonus for their future. With regards to this, I am forced to ask you from my face and the face of other parents to add a Russian class at middle school, for example, social studies in Russian, which would grow interest and attract new children and those who left because of Russian language arts. I am absolutely sure that kids want to learn the Russian language, and many are leaving the program currently for a completely different reason. It's vital to add another class in Russian at middle school level so that our kids can continue to learn Russian at the high school without added stress from missing years of Russian instruction. I'm also unsettled by the fact that kids at middle school forecast for classes without the knowledge or input of parents. Parents were isolated from this process and found out only after the fact. We want to have an opportunity to help and support our own children. Their choices of current classes are not just a formality, they are a deposit into their future knowledge. Thank you.
Next is Magduda Rabimon.
Even if I can speak 4 languages, I prefer to speak up in Russian today for my community to understand. Добрый вечер, меня зовут Мавджуда Рабимов, я учительница 3 класса. Сегодня я пришла рассказать о сокращении нашей двухязычной программы в средней школе и старшей школе. Как вы знаете, русский язык – язык 4 уровня сложности, английский и испанский 2, и учить его крайне трудно. То, что у нас отняли social studies в средней школе и IB-класс в старшей школе на русском языке, делает всю работу учителей начальной школы, все эти 6 лет труда и пота, бесполезной. Не может ученик не изучать 3 года язык, особенно такой трудный. Несправедливость началась с приходом новых лидеров, что отняли IB-программу без всякого согласования, без совета, без даже сообщения об этом учителям и родителям. Учителя и все наше сообщество сделали огромную работу, чтобы наша программа была с 0 по 12 класс. Мы и понятия не имели, что новая администрация умеет так быстро и рьяно разрушать то, что мы, учителя и родители, потратили больше 25 лет жизни. Разрушать не строить. Пусть новая команда покажет, как она может решать проблему в пользу трехязычной программы. Особенно теперь, имея увеличенный состав администрации. Мы тратили усилия не для того, чтобы кто-то пришел и убрал, отменил или просто игнорировал то, что было нашей целью и возможностью для детей иметь лучшее будущее. Например, моя дочь была первой ученицей IB-программы, которая получила полный диплом. Это помогло ей поступить в медицинскую школу. Почему теперь вы отнимаете такую возможность у других детей? Кто дал вам моральное право разрушать? Зачем тогда лидерские комитеты, родительские комитеты? Не для того мы строили нашу программу, наращивая ее четверть века. Мы обеспечиваем вертикальную связь между классами с 0 по 12. Люди приезжают к нам в испанскую, русскую программы издалека, привозят детей рано утром, чтобы дети знали свой язык, свою историю, свою культуру и гордились своим прошлым. Сегодня количество учеников уменьшилось, но проблем у нас не уменьшилось. Дети сложные, с травматическими переживаниями последствий пандемии и войны на Украине. У многих семей там папы, родственники, друзья. В нашем округе русскоговорящие ученики, учителя и население являются меньшинством. Мы, как и все меньшинства в Америке, испытываем несправедливость остро и глубже, чем другие сообщества Woodburn. Посмотрите в зал. Русская программа в нашем округе больше 25 лет, а у нас нет ни одного русскоговорящего представителя в школьной администрации. Равенство должно быть на деле, а не на бумаге. Ученики из русской программы – наши ученики. Родители этих детей – наши налогоплательщики, на деньги которых мы построили нашу школу, добавили 2 здания, и до сих пор они нас содержат. Прошу вас, уважаемые члены округа, которых мы избрали, помочь, чтобы и в испанской, и в русских программах на уровне средней школы были обязательные предметы в виде общественных наук.
и чтобы нам вернули IB-программу в high school, которая так нужна нашим детям. Thank you.
I'm back. Okay. Good evening, esteemed members of the school board, teachers, and parents. My name is Mavjuda Rabimov. I'm a teacher of third grade at Heritage Elementary School. Today, I've come to speak about the cuts being made to the Russian dual language program at the middle school level and IB program at the high school. As you know, the Russian language is classified as a level 4 of complexity in language learning compared to English and Spanish, both in the second level. And teaching it is extremely difficult, especially because it has 2 verb conjugations, 7 nouns, adjectives, pronoun declinations, and 3 genders. The fact that they are taking away our Russian class at middle school and don't want to offer Russian social studies and IB classes at high school, which our children desperately need, makes all the work that we do at the elementary level, 6 years of sweat and effort, pointless. It is impossible for a student to have a gap of 3 years in which they do not take any classes to continue developing their language, especially with a language as difficult as Russian. That will be a pitfall for our students. The injustice started with the arrival of our new admins and the closure of the IB program without consult, without an agreement, and without even telling parents and teachers about this. Teachers and our whole Slavic community put in a lot of work in order to make our dual language program K through 12. We had no idea that the new leadership could so quickly and zealously destroy all that we had spent 25 years of our lives building. Destroying is not building. Let the new leadership show how they can solve problems without destroying them, but rather by positively affecting the trilingual program, especially since there are more administrators to do this now. We did not spend all of our energy building the program just to have someone come and take away, cancel, and ignore our whole goal of giving our children a better future. For example, my daughter was the first student to receive a full IB diploma. This helped her enter medical school. Why are they now taking away this opportunity from our children? Who gave them the moral right to destroy? Why then do we have leadership teams and parent committees? If they came to destroy, then they are mistaken. We did not build and grow our program for decades just for it to be destroyed. We align our program from K through 12th grade in years. People bring their children in both the Russian and Spanish programs from other cities, driving early in the morning so that their children can learn their native language, their native culture, their history, and take pride in their heritage. Today, our numbers of students have decreased, but our problems have not, especially now when it's more complex to teach children because of the traumatic effects due to the pandemic and the ongoing war in Ukraine. Many of our children still have families and friends there, especially now with the rollout of new reading, writing, and math programs. Providing our children with the opportunity to learn languages ensures that we have a future leaders, holistically developed and intelligent. In our district, our Russian-speaking students, teachers, and community are a minority. Like other minorities in America, we experience injustice far more deeply and extremely than other communities in Woodburn. Look around you. The Russian program has existed for more than 25 years, and yet we have no Russian administrators. Equality needs to be visible, not just on paper. We seek to unite people in collective action for the advancement of racial equity. It is time to act. Students in the Russian program are our students. Parents of these students, our taxpayers. Their money helped fund buildings of schools, adding 2 buildings, and continue to fund us. We ask you, esteemed board members, who were chosen by the people, to help us ensure that in both the Russian and Spanish programs at the middle school level, social studies classes are offered, and to return our IB program to the high school level, which we so desperately need for our students who will be our leaders in the future.
And up next is Mili Beltran.
Muy buenas tardes, señores de la mesa directiva. Soy la señora Mili Beltrán y estoy aquí para decirles la importancia de tener las clases necesarias para nuestros hijos. Les vengo a pedir que los alumnos de 4º y 5º grado de primaria necesitan continuar tomando clases en nuestro idioma. No entendemos las razones que ustedes tomaron la decisión de no seguir dándole las clases en español. No es bueno para ellos que ustedes suspendan su aprendizaje, sin siquiera darnos la razón. Somos un programa dual y por lo tanto significa que a los 12 años de escolaridad los alumnos llevaran cada año clases de español o ruso. En las escuelas secundarias deberían tener clases de ciencias sociales, porque es una de las razones fundamentales por la que es de gran importancia la enseñanza de las ciencias sociales en nuestros niños, que serán los futuros profesionales del mañana. Es esencial que para los estudiantes puedan comprender y participar activamente en el mundo que los rodea, desarrollar habilidades críticas y emocionales y de fomentar una ciudadanía activa y comprometida. Las ciencias sociales también enseñan a los estudiantes sobre la participación cívica y política, lo que les permite desarrollar su capacidad para participar activamente en la sociedad y en la forma de tomar decisiones democráticas. Los estudiantes aprenden sobre el poder del voto, la organización social y el papel de la ciudadanía en la mejora de la sociedad. Todo esto les ayuda a comprender y valorar las diferentes perspectivas culturales, sociales, a temprana edad. Al estudiar la diversidad y la pluralidad de experiencias humanas, los estudiantes pueden desarrollar habilidades interculturales y empatía hacia ellos mismos, que son diferentes que ellos. Ahora yo le pregunto, ¿qué es lo que realmente se espera de ellos en el mañana? Si no complementamos lo esencial en ellos hoy, ustedes y los maestros acaban de firmar un acuerdo en donde dicen que seremos de verdad un programa dual. Entonces, cumplan con ello y que este año venidero escolar comencemos a cumplir lo prometido a nuestra población. Porque nosotros los padres sí estamos poniendo atención a las malas decisiones que se han dotado en el pasado. Nosotros los padres queremos que nuestros hijos tengan maestros capacitados para dar las materias como se deben de dar. También que tengamos unos directores y superintendentes que tengan la visión en venir a ayudar y a no perjudicar como hasta ahora se ha venido haciendo. Por eso, señores de la mesa directiva, hagan su trabajo como se debe de hacer. Ahora especialmente busquen un superintendente que no nos haga creer que está interesado en nosotros nada más, sino que lo demuestre. Busquen en lugares lejanos, aunque no hablen el español, porque hasta ahora hemos creído que eso es lo mejor. Miren lo que ha pasado en el pasado. Por lo tanto, concluimos con esta parte. ¿Cómo visualizamos a nuestros jóvenes en un futuro? Gracias.
We also have today Luba Kowalko.
I got my glasses. Hello, board members. My name is Luba Koka. My 11-year-old daughter, Vera, is attending 6th grade at Valor Elementary or middle school and has been at the Russian program at Heritage Elementary since kindergarten. She hardly spoke any Russian when she started kindergarten and is speaking not great, but understands the language and is able to read and comprehend. When beginning 6th grade at Valor, Vera was very disappointed that she couldn't continue with choir because the only Russian class offered at Valor for 6th graders was during the same first period as choir. Working through a schedule, Vera is now very happy with music, learning how to play the clarinet, staying in the Russian class. Although Vera is struggling this year in the Russian language arts class to have the continued availability to learn Russian as a second language at Heritage and now Valor has been and continues to be extremely important to Vera and to myself. All my grandparents were originally from Russia. My parents born in China and then migrated to the United States via Hong Kong and Brazil, settling here in Woodburn, where I was born. The Russian program at Woodburn schools, pre-K through high school, has been extremely important to many families in our area, including my own, to have added skills and training to continue on to higher education and long-term careers around the world. I ask all of you to please expand and increase the budget for the Russian program at Valor School, high school. I didn't even know the IB class was canceled until just now. I'm a strong supporter of the Russian program as a parent. Increase the budget, please. so that my daughter, as a seventh and eighth grader, next year can continue to learn and not fall behind in her Russian studies, but by the time she attends Woodburn High School, to be able to continue in the Russian program. Thank you for your time.
We're gonna move into the work session for today. Up first is the Juntos presentation. Presented by Yuridia Reyes.
Buenas tardes, good evening, everyone. Me llamo Yuridia Reyes. My name is Yuridia Reyes. Mis pronombres son ella, my pronouns are she, her, ella. Y yo soy la coordinadora del programa de Juntos, and the Juntos program coordinator, serving Marion and Polk counties. I started my position in 2020. I am also a Woodburn High School alumni. I went to Woodburn in elementary, middle school, and high school, and then I moved on to OSU and lived there for 7 years. I'm now back in my community doing this work that I'm very proud of, and I'm happy to share with you all today. Before we begin, I want to give my students the opportunity to share who they are and what Juntos means to them. So I'll open up the space. Anybody who wants to begin?
Hola, mis instrucciones y maestros. Mi nombre es Ricardo Sancho Ramos, soy un senior de la escuela de Woodburn High School. Hello guys, my name is Ricardo Sancho Ramos and I am a senior at Woodburn High School.
All right, hello, my name is Mauricio. I'm a senior at Woodburn High School as well, and OSU for me means a lot. They have helped me a lot during the process to apply for college. Without Juntos, I wouldn't be able to get into OSU. So yeah.
Hello, my name is Melanie Toscano Scott y yo voy a la Woodburn High School también. Juntos has helped me more than any counselor at my school has. Actually, there wasn't a college and career counselor for months. And those months were the time that I had to apply for college and I had to apply for scholarships and I had to do so much work and there was no one there to help me. But Yuri was always there, and through Juntos, I learned so much. And my parents actually do come from a background where they got education, but through Mexico. So it's a whole completely different process. And yeah, without Juntos, I just don't believe that I would have gotten the 4 years for free that I'm getting. Thank you.
My name is Luciana, and I'm also a senior in high school. Juntos means a lot to me because without it, I would be lost in this process of going to college. Judy is really helpful. She's always there to help us, and we have a plan like a year ago. I wasn't going to go to college, but thanks to Juntos, I changed my mindset, and I'm enrolled at PSC.
Good afternoon. My name is Alexandra Medina. My pronouns are she, her, and ella. I am currently a student at Chemeketa. I'm a first generation attending at Chemeketa. When I was a senior at the Woodburn High School, I actually met Yuri there. Well, not there, but around there. And she has helped me a lot. She has encouraged me and she has helped me as a first generation student find my way to continuing my education. She has allowed me to volunteer for many events. And thanks to her, I have met plenty of people. I have done a lot of community service and, she is encouraging me and, has motivated me to continue my education more than anything.
Hey, my name is Jennifer Medina and I'm a senior at the Woodburn High School and I'm already doing early college and honestly, I'm still a little bit lost, but with Judy's help, she helps me apply to scholarships, she helps me volunteer and she's been a big help to me. She's encouraged me to keep looking for scholarships and she has never let us down. She's always been there for us. And like Melanie said, like the counselors, they didn't really talk to us about college and stuff like that, like Judy has, and she has been like a big help to us. And
thank you guys. They gave me more credit than I deserve, honestly. Really, it's a lot of resiliency from their end and poniéndose las pilas and really asking the question and being the biggest advocates for themselves. This is just a small glimpse of what the Juntos program does and the magic that we bring into our Latino families here in Marion and Polk counties. We want to go to the next slide. So what is Juntos? Juntos is a statewide program that is funded through the Extension Service at Oregon State University. Because we are a land-grant university, we have this commitment and responsibility to give back to the communities. In the early days, that was through agriculture, research, and knowledge, bringing this back to ranchers and farmers. Now we notice that really, we need to bring education resources into our community. So we are a program that does evening workshops, and we have a curriculum that's culturally relevant that we do and offer to our Latino families in Spanish. So hence the name Juntos. The program is meant for the students and the parents together to learn about the access and the plans after higher education. So go to the next slide. We started the Juntos position here in Marion and Polk counties in 2020 during the pandemic. Marion County specifically was on our wish list for a long time because of the demographics. We know that Woodburn High School has over 90% Latino enrollment, and most of our students here are first generation from a farm working background with mixed immigration statuses in the household. We really wanted to target Woodburn very strategically, so we partner with Chemeketa. My position is in split, so I get funded through Chemeketa and OSU together. When we started Juntos, our eyes were in Woodburn. Specifically for me, since I'm a Woodburn High School alumni, I really wanted to come back and just have a mirrored experience of giving this program to parents like mine or students like myself. I'm one of 10 Juntos coordinators across the state. The map that you see on there is where Juntos exists currently. We have served over 6,500 students and families across Oregon. In over 35 communities. We receive funding from the university to deliver Juntos and grants. There's a lot of grant writing in my position, but also be a partner with school districts to receive funding to be able to offer these workshops. What are the program components of Juntos? The first one is a series of workshops at the middle school and high school level. In Woodburn, we have only been able to implement the high school curriculum through a pilot program. And this was a 6 weeks in the evenings where we offered dinner and childcare for the families to increase attendance. This was first a pilot program where we put out the expenses and the school did not help with any of the expenses. And it was a huge success. We were able to target 35 families, and we had to even change locations because of the amount of families that were coming. So we were in the cafeteria. We were able to successfully graduate 26 of these families, and they were consistent throughout the 6 weeks. After that, it was very hard to get administration to sit down with me and really stabilize a partnership so that Juntos can continue. 3 years later, we finally got into the Woodburn High School office and were able to meet with admin to continue Juntos. But it took 3 years of phone calls and emails and meetings. Another one of the components for Juntos is monthly family nights, and this is another way for us to engage students. I like to tell families that I'm not a program that just comes, we give information and we leave. We really focus on the relationship building. We want to get to know them and their plans and tailor to them. So the way that we continue this relationship is through monthly family nights. Here in Woodburn, because there hasn't been a consistent partnership with Woodburn High School, we created a Juntos Club where we meet weekly with the students. And these are students not only from Woodburn High School, but also from like Mount Angel High School and Jervis High School who are coming into the Chimacata campus and, engaging in, club meetings where we talk about access to higher education, we explore college options or post-secondary options. We offer college visits for the entire family. This year, we are taking a college visit to OSU, and it's not only the students coming, it's the parents and the siblings. So we are going to be going to OSU on May 20th. It's on a Saturday. And we had to get a charter bus because of all the families that expressed interest. So we will be leaving from Woodburn, and then our Salem Kaiser has been able to pick up the Juntos program and really run with that. So Salem Kaiser School District has provided their own bus transportation for our students.
Maura, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You mentioned that you meet, so you're a club now, and you meet at Chimacata.
Yes.
And so this program is offered. So,
It's not offered at the Woodburn High School. Yeah. And my favorite component is the mentoring and advising piece for Juntos, and this is where we really connect with the students. As they get near junior or senior year, they really hear from me like, hey, Ricardo, I see that you're becoming a senior. What's the plan? What are you thinking? How can I help you? How can I support you? Students have been able to connect with me and say, hey, I'm not understanding why it's asking me if I lived in Oregon the last 5 years. Oh, that's just a residency question. So they've been able to connect with me and really help them, guide them through the process. And it's so nice to see that these students that I met, 3 years ago, fast forward now, they all have college plans because of that one-on-one support and also having, being very motivated and resilient. So, like I mentioned, we have a partnership with Chimacata, so my position is funded through Chimacata. And I am based at the Woodburn Chimacata here in the second floor. And this partnership, it allows me to support students who are dual enrolled or who want to do early college. So, I think our Latino students are the ones who least benefit from dual enrolled classes. And sometimes it's because we don't understand the process or the opportunities that exist for us. I also support with the transfer application process, whether that's from the community college to a four-year public or private. Degree exploration, I think there's not a lot of information out there about apprenticeship programs or certificates that we like to explore with students. I'm not a recruiter, so my success does not depend on students coming to OSU. It just depends on making sure that they have a plan. We also connect students with a lot of first-year support services like Trio, CAM, guidance at PSU, beyond others. And then we promote programs that come in and, we're looking for students to do summer classes, for free in the summer, and we promote those programs to our students or STEM camps in the summer. Like I mentioned, we piloted Juntos in Woodburn High School in spring, and we're currently working on establishing a partnership. We have expanded to the Salem Kaiser School District. We just completed a cohort at West Salem High School. And these are some of the partnerships that we've had established. Because of the slow moving process with the Woodburn High School, we had to be very strategic, and we knew that the demographic was out there. We know that our Latino families were out there. So we partnered with community-based organizations, which is not something that we traditionally do. We traditionally partner with the school district. So we looked into FHDC, worked on a grant, and brought the program to the communities there. We also partner with Turno through Capaces Leadership Program, and we did the program with the students. So that was a very awesome opportunity because we were able to find more students to serve. And really a lot of now our track from Juntos is through referrals or like, mi sobrina, my niece said that you helped with this and how can you be a part of this? There's different ways to fund Juntos and the workshops, the evening workshops. Each school district is very different. Some of the funding sources that schools can tap into are Measure 98 funds, Student Student Success Act funds, Title III funds, migrant education funds, and much more. And we're also happy to work with schools to do grant writing.
Right.
Yeah.
So when it comes to funding, help me understand what that means.
Yeah, so we do have a budget, an estimate budget for juntos at the high school level. We are asking our partners to fund dinner, childcare, and a facilitator. So I co-facilitate the program. The training and my time for being at the Woodburn High School is all covered through my position, so there's no cost there. Really, it's the school saying, we want to offer a stipend, or we want to offer an hourly wage for the co-facilitator that's identified at the school to do with this. We do like a very high estimate of $5,000 per cohort, which really in reality, that's not much in the budget of a school.
So, sorry, so is that the year when you say cohort?
It's per cohort. So for example, most schools do a juntos cohort in the fall or in the spring, serving around 25 to 30 families. Schools are very strategic in the way that they do outreach. For example, with Mario Garza in Woodburn High School, he said, I want to target juniors in the spring, so that when they go into their senior year, they've already had this established relationship with you. So that's what we targeted for. So that fund comes per cohort.
So you would have the cohorts?
If the school wants to. At the Woodburn High School, that was the ideal plan because of the size of the school. They would say, no, we want a cohort in the spring and another one in the fall. And really, we're just really strategic in the grade level that some schools, Central High School, they say, let's offer it from freshman to senior year because our Latino enrollment is about 50%. Because of the Latino enrollment here in Woodburn High School, there's possibility to do more than one. This is the flyer to our Juntos Club. Like I said, we are hosted at the Chimekana in Woodburn. Really here, we focus on one-on-one support with the college admissions process, essays, scholarship. And we meet every Monday from 4:30 to 6:30 in the computer lab, and students are able to use this space to print out documents, to scan things over to the universities, to ask questions, we provide them dinner before we move on to this one. This is open to anybody. There's no cost. You don't have to be a Woodburn High School student. We have different students from all different areas from Marion County coming to this. We also host I-Invent camp. So this is going to be a camp that OSU brings for middle school students. We had one last year, and most of these students are students in the FHDC program that we were able to recruit. They were participating in Juntos, and then since they had younger siblings, I said, there's this program coming and it's totally free. We offered transportation and it was a week long. It was a huge success, so we're offering it again. These are the dates, June 31st to July 3rd, and we have spots for 20 students. Woodburn. For transportation, it will only be Woodburn. We can't go outside of Woodburn. This is a little bit of our Juntos Family Day. I shared a little bit that we're going to be visiting OSU on May 20th. And really what this family day consists of is a campus tour, vendors fairs, career showcase, and workshops. And these are all in Spanish. So OSU has put in a lot of money and resources to make sure that these presentations are in Spanish for the families and the students, because we know sometimes those resources or those opportunities don't exist.
And this is for all families?
Yes. So young babies, toddlers, high school students, the parents, if they're able to attend, they can be there.
This is for the families of the students that they're Juntos program.
Correct. And I say, like, the blueprint says Juntos students only and their families, but really I know that a lot of students don't have the privilege to benefit from Juntos. So my side, there is even students who are not Juntos participants that I welcome to come. Next steps for Juntos. Yes. Next steps for Juntos is we want to keep growing in the existing communities that we have. And we want to expand to the middle school level. So there is a Juntos curriculum at the middle school level. It's also in Spanish. It's 5 weeks instead of 6 weeks. We have not been able to have success with administration in middle school. That would be my biggest ask, connecting with the middle school to see if we can bring this program at the middle school level and really solidify a partnership. And we want to bring the university to our community and show that we're here to help. If they have any questions, they can come into Chemeketa and say, hey, Judy, I have a question about X reason. And then we understand that the post-secondary track has transformed a lot in the last years. And, 4 years, public or private, doesn't work for everyone. So I'm learning in the field of other opportunities that exist for students. And that's something that I want to be able to, share with my students if they think that maybe a 4 year is not for them and that they don't have any other place to go, that there's actually more opportunities for them. These, you have a little worksheet that I gave you. I'm just going to give you information about our evaluation. At the end of the program, we do an evaluation. And it's going to tell you some of the quotes that participants have shared about Juntos and how Juntos has helped them. I just wanted to give you like a live version of that quantitative data of how it has helped students.
How many students are in the program? Have come on?
Well, I'm finally seeing the circle moment. I think out of this cohort in Woodburn that we've served, we have over 35 students with post-secondary plans. But it's not just a 4-year university. It is, either an apprenticeship program or 2 years. We do have a post-secondary overall statewide of 92%. 92% of our participants are going on beyond higher education.
So when you say post-secondary plan, so there's a difference. There's a plan and there's an actual. Yeah.
Right.
There's a difference. What is that?
So we have been working on being able to follow up with the student throughout their college journey. That is somewhere where we are lacking, where we connect with the students at the high school and we know where they're headed, but really we don't have a Juntos curriculum in the college level to say like, hey, we know that the student has graduated the 4-year. But all I can say is that 92% is students who are saying, hey, this is where I'm headed, and this is where I'm going. Right. Retention, I'm not sure.
So for being 92% of the state sounds great, but I'm just concerned for them. So when you speak of numbers, I don't want to.
Yeah, for Woodburn, 35 students would be what we're looking at, but we've only been here for 2020, so for 3 years.
And is that only high school students?
Correct.
Yeah, the 35 students is over the 3 years, not per year.
Robin?
The 35 is a total of students, so like every year on average, 10 to 12 students.
That's a total.
Okay.
Next. And that is everything. Are there any questions for me? This is my contact information where you can reach me, email me, call, or text.
Me gustaría decir que me gustaría este grupo juntos que crezca, porque estos 3 años nomás son 35 seniors que van a ir a universidades como yo, Universidad de Oregon, Mauricio, el Oregon State University, PSU, ella está en Chemeketa y va a ir a Western, yo creo. También Jennifer va a ir a Chemeketa también. Tenemos planes. Tengo amigos que yo tengo como freshmen, sophomores y juniors que necesitan ayuda y no han tenido ayuda por los consejeros o soporte por los consejeros y tienen miedo o no saben cómo funciona todo esto. Y conjuntos me ha ayudado mucho y también a todos nosotros aquí que estamos sentados aquí y reunidos. No sé cuánto nos ha ayudado, pero para mí me ha ayudado bastante. Me informaron cómo es el colegio, cuánto tengo que hacer, el dinero, la FAFSA, el Oregon Promise, el soporte que ha tenido es más que la high school ahí con mis consejeros en 3 meses, en estos pocos meses que mis 4 años allá en la high school. Y eso es mucho con decir con este pequeño grupo que ha estado por unos meses. Sin el soporte o la ayuda de Juntos, no creo que hubiera llegado ahorita y aplicar en la Universidad de Oregon. Por eso quiero que este grupo florezca y no se desaparece, por favor. Porque quiero que más personas se unan a este grupo y tengan más información y que tengan más ayuda para que no tengan miedo o no saber cómo aplicar más o tener otra oportunidad. Porque nosotros somos el futuro de la nación, ¿no? Necesitamos una mejor educación y saber cómo funciona esto. Si no, no hay chiste, ¿verdad? Por eso me gustaría que juntos se crece más que está ahorita y expandir todo en Oregon, no en Oregon, sino en nación. Gracias.
Gracias, Ricardo.
So, ¿me pueden ayudar? Entonces, hace muchos años, yo trabajé en el centro de colegio. Me gustaba. So, ¿me pueden ayudar a entender? Yo sé que hay consejeros en esto y que hay un problema. Ayúdame a entender por qué no está funcionando o no ha funcionado para usted. Porque los recursos ahí están, todo ahí existe. Yo conozco ese programa porque yo trabajé ahí hace muchos años. So, ¿me pueden ayudar a entender por qué o qué pasó?
La comunicación.
Comunicación.
Yo diría para comenzar, se fue y no tuvimos a nadie. Y luego, para seguir, siempre que yo iba, me negaban ayuda. O sea, no entiendo por qué no me querían explicar y me hacían sentir como una burla. Y Yuri nunca me hacía sentir así. Y siempre me ayudaba.
Con la conexión. Yo entiendo porque yo también, cuando trabajaba con estudiantes, por eso venía, por la conexión. So, parece que tal vez si es algo que podemos mejorar, sienten que eso ayudaría el programa de ahorita. No sé qué tienen. So, parece de mejorar esa conexión con sus consejeros, por el programa que existe. Bueno, verdad,
Me escucho como falta de confianza, ¿no? Que la confianza se cultiva. Si yo voy y toco la puerta y me dan una sonrisa y me dicen, trásate, that's the first step, right? You're breaking that barrier, right? Oh yeah, she was at least smiling, right? Or him, whoever, right? Then the next time you're there, for any other reason, right? And you knock on the door and you're welcome. So that's cultivating, right? The relationship, the trusting. So that's what I'm hearing from you, right? That the trust or the confianza was there.
Yo soy una persona que is very persistent. So I would beg for help. But they would just be like, I don't know how to help you. Like, yeah, they can help you with FAFSA, but what about, what does SSI mean? What does this mean? What does the other mean? And if I can't apply to it, is there anything else I can apply to it? They wouldn't give me resources. They wouldn't give me answers. They would just give me a blank stare. And Yuri, when I'm having confusion about should I accept this grant, should I accept this scholarship, she's there even if it's 10 p.m. I can text her and she'll answer me.
We do have a text, I do have a text number that my supervisors have, so they can see the conversations. I think more than anything, I want to mention that this program, really the magic of it is bringing the parents along in the conversation, because many times our parents are lost in understanding the process, and this weight gets put on the students. So like you need to know this, and on top of this, you need to translate to mom and dad, and then mom and dad need to get it. With Juntos, really, you're able to kind of be in the same space and have the students and the parents answer the questions. A lot of times, I think there's like a power dynamic in our students and in our parents, where like, I withhold this information, or I know this information, so mom and dad, you don't know anything, you know, like, don't worry about it, or vice versa, right? So we really try to make sure that in Juntos, we bring this information to the students and the parents and both along the process, because it can be very lonely if you're a first generation student and you're going off to college, but you feel like you can't confide on your parents or your guardians to understand the process, and you're too scared to worry them. So we speak about the realities of what is the process, how do you finance it, how do you make education a family goal, and the workshops really build up on one another. I think that's the biggest magic, to see that students feel like they have a full military behind them, plus cheering them on, not only with the partnership with the school, but also the parents being there, and then the students who are motivated, and if they're not finding the motivation to continue on with the post-secondary.
I think you said it in the beginning, and that's the key element that describes a lot of what you're saying right now too, is that cultural aspect. You're delivering all of this information in the way that it's most appropriate for our families, for the background of our families, and that's what's making the biggest difference probably.
And for the students, you're a role model, right? You already walked that path. So nobody's gonna tell you different, right? Because you already walked the path. You were here and you were friends, so you understand the struggles of the community. So that's the trust issue, right? Right off the bat. You know, because you're from here, you're one of us, right? You look like us. You talk like us. We want to be like you, right? And so that's a trust issue and culture.
Aprecio mucho el trabajo que están haciendo tanto tú como tu hermano, porque he tenido la oportunidad de hablar con él. Sé que le echa muchas ganas, so thank you. Like when we shared, we had her when she was at the high school. Once we graduated, we started a program that's kind of similar to this. We called it Renew, and it was a lot of alumni like yourself, freshly graduated, that wanted to give back. It was all on a volunteer basis, so I'm really glad that you're getting paid, and OSU values this work and puts funding behind it, and so does Temecula. Lo que me frustra un poco is how challenging it's been for you to partner with Woodburn, when I think it's mutually beneficial, and our students need this kind of support and this. And I know it's a lot of work, but when the community comes together, like, we all benefit from that work. And I've seen my students go on, you know, from thinking they want to become engineers to like working in the field as engineers, you know. And to me, that's valuable, because I didn't know any engineers, but I wanted to practice in that field, and I had to figure it out on my own. I didn't meet anyone until I started working. But to be able to help these students at that early on, and just kind of the journey helps, you know, to continue that pipeline. So can you share a little more, like, why was it the pandemic? Like, are you talking to the wrong people? Like, how can we help you continue to grow this program, like you're saying, because I think it's needed.
That's a good start. Lisa is amazing. He's my brother. He works for the College of Engineering. And I think a lot of my professional development comes from him. So it was a mixture of a lot of things. I think the pandemic, definitely my position started in 2020. We really couldn't do in-person programming. If we did programming, it was virtual, and we know how that went. When we were finally, you know, being able to partner, it was really hard to get all 4 administrators at the table. I think that was the biggest challenge. And if one administrator said yes, it was for that specific school, but you know, but they had to work out budgets and see how that worked. There was a lot of uncertainty of, you know, just how we were going to get juntos, and then this transition for like 4 administrators to 1 happened, and they said, hold off, like we have a lot going on right now, like we can't really do this right now. And I said, okay, no worries, like we really want it, but we just can't do this right now. So that's when we started like really outsourcing to community-based organizations, doing grant writing and trying to find our audience that way. When one administrator finally came to the table, we tried to also start the conversation on like, this is what happened and this is what we did and we want to continue. But there was no responses. So there was a lot of phone call, emails, personally going until, and then they said, you know, college and career counselor is no longer here, which was the only person who kind of gave us the in to do the pilot. So that was a surprise to us to learn that. And they said, let's just wait for the next college and career person to come so they can take it on and partner with you. So we waited again. So now just as of last week, we were finally able to have a conversation with an admin at Woodburn High School, who seemed to be very proactive and, you know, said, these are the deadlines, we want this program, and I'm hoping this moves forward from that meeting. So, but like I said, There's one Woodburn High School, there's two middle schools. We are literally in Woodburn. That's our home base. That's my home base. So I would love to see at the middle school level so that families know about it and then transition into the Woodburn High School and they feel prepared.
Yeah, well, you encounter any roadblocks, I'm sure you can reach out to any one of us. Myself, even if I'm not on the board anymore, you come give me a call and I'll help you talk to the right people to get this going, because I see a lot of value in it. And clearly, we've heard from you, and I'm sure the other 30 students would have similar stories. So just thank you for coming out to them.
Well, thank you for having me and I hope this was, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
So we talked about a number of students that is in the program, is there an application process? How are students selected? Is it whoever wants to be a part of it?
Yeah, good question. We don't have any, you don't have to be like a student from the migrant ed program or, you know, be a certain income to qualify. Really, the information is in Spanish. If you understand the language, you understand the language and you want to get this information, you can be a part of the program. Schools, like I said, really are very strategic in the way who they want to target. For example, if they say, really, we just want freshmen this year to be in the program. So we just do outreach to freshmen through flyers. I personally do personal phone calls because robot costs a number, especially with the familias. So I call personally and say, hey, you know, this program is happening at your school. And that's how we do our outreach. If a person who's in the 10th grade decides to come, totally fine. Really, we don't hold any qualifications or requirements for a student or a parent to participate. It's a little bit different. Some of our sites partner with migrant ed programs to offer puntos. And I know for migrant ed programs, if they're funding dinner and like childcare, there's a certain percentage of students who have to be migrant ed in order to serve or use that budget. That would be really where there would be some like, okay, you know, we need to check in with migrant ed because I know they need a report numbers. So that's a rare case that could happen where we cannot allow a student or parent.
So what's the most, what's the max?
Yeah, my max per cohort is 30 families, and that's still very high for the cohort because we want to focus on the relationship building. We've had cohorts in Washington or Clackamas County where it's 50 families and they're in a gym, but it's really hard because the curriculum does dinámicas, where we do, you know, activities, and it's really hard to do it with 50 families and build that connection. So we keep it at 30, the highest, and some sites, you know, that I've had in Salem where it's, you know, they have 10 families, they're like, that's a win for us. We'll take 10 families. So it really depends, but there's no minimum requirement. Yeah.
Judy, a couple of years ago, somebody approached me about the Ventus program in Chemeketa. They were asking for money in another life. I have another hat that I wear. Besides the board, I work for the For Family Foundation. And the Family Foundation put some money for this program as well. And they asked me if we could increase it at that time. And I suggested that for the income for the coming year, instead of asking in the middle of the year for an increase, you do the budget with the numbers that are realistic for, I mean, they were planning on doing this program. I was talking to them in 2019 before the COVID. And so they were planning on being strategic and having the Juntos program here in Woodburn because I was so sad that I see it in McMinnville, I see it somewhere else, the program, and I didn't see it here. So I was excited that it was coming this way. But I suggested that when you guys, I mean, someone in your office are doing grant writing, suggested again, if the funding not limited, it seems like it's not a problem. But you know, that's what I suggest. Nothing in the middle of the year for the when you start the program that year off, or the planning for the next year, that's when you submit the application for the increase of money of funding.
That's great advice. Because we do get program funds, but for example, our Juntos Club right here, we don't have program funds to like go on a campus visit or do things, you know, outside of the, you know, normal where we bring guest speakers. So increasing or having an ask for that during that time, I think would be appropriate for this site.
Okay,
I think that's all from our end. You have my contact information if you ever want to reach out. I will continue knocking doors for middle school and continuing to push that conversation with Woodburn High School and hopefully establishing a partnership where maybe this is like an ongoing thing every year. Thank you.
Thank you. Gracias, que presentaron. Buenas noches. Yo, Dania, bien, buenas noches. Gracias, buena suerte. Thank you.
Right. Up next, we have a review of the 2022-2023 organizational chart.
Thanks. This request came forward from board members to look over that. So I don't know if you want me to review it or if you've had a chance to look at it and you had some questions about how it's set up and those kinds of things. I'm not sure where we'd like to start.
I think we can start with, if you just give it a high overview.
Sure.
Roles, I'm not sure if everyone's had a chance to look at it.
Okay. So at the very top, of course, the board of directors hires a superintendent, which you'll also be talking about later tonight. The superintendent then has certain people in role or certain roles that then manage parts of the business. So on the far left, we have teaching and learning, student services, also known as special education. We have our title and special programs, which cover many things. We have Assistant Superintendent Juan Larios. He supervises the building principals. In technology, we have technology, we have human resources, business, safety, and operations. And then some of those people at the top have other people below them that manage other parts of the program. So under teaching and learning, we have an assistant director. Same thing with student services, and additionally with title and special programs. And then over to business. So nutrition services is under the business office, and the facilities and maintenance is under the safety and operations. The other two folks who are on there, of course, Jenny here to my immediate left, and then our communications person, Rachel. And so those are the general layout of how things roll out as far as leadership in those areas across the district. Now, these things that are listed below are kind of the highlights. Of course, you can't put everything that person does. Those are some bulleted options when people kind of say, well, because originally this came forward when somebody had asked earlier on in the year at the board level to say, how do I find out who does what? And so I tried to put in the bullet points when we made this organizational chart, so you'd have an idea if you were looking for someone or something, where would you look for it?
So that board member may have been me. And so, I mean, I think that one, for myself and also for transparency purposes for the community, to know what our structure and organization looks like is important. I think our previous organizational chart had all admin listed on there. And so I think that's what I was looking at. I wanted to see positions and titles for each of these departments, because I think that's part of the structure. And so that I don't see that. And I looked into surrounding school districts, and I mean, they have that information. I went onto their website and they have images, and then they have their staff listed on there. I explored our website. I think the only department is HR that might have everybody. I mean, actually, I don't know. I think it was just 2 people. And all the other departments, either I didn't see anything, or it's just, I don't know, still in the works, but it's been months. So I'm just not quite sure why we can't lay out this framework with positions and titles as part of this organization that we have in the past.
Well, I brought up the one that had been shared with me, the 22, 23, the original one beforehand, and it didn't have names. I actually added the names here, and it had slightly different things in there before. So I was trying to find other kind of examples of what you might have had before.
In the previous budget is where I got the previous budget booklet.
Okay.
So it had,
Is this a-
high school,
Okay.
it had those directors and assistant principals. And I guess what I'm also asking for is, you know, if our families or anybody wants to contact one of these departments, then they should be able to do that.
Mhm.
And that information should be listed.
So are you looking for more of a directory of how to reach all the folks?
Well, we've had a directory before, I don't know if they have them now. I know before we used to have all of our staff listed on the website. We haven't really had it.
Well, we're still in the process of putting that together because we had some significant issues in the background with something called Active Directory. And we've been going through and actually trying to fix that because those things didn't populate automatically into those departments. So with this transition out, they were originally done by hand. We're trying to have it not done by hand. So we're still working on trying to get those to connect. That's why some of those are not listed in there. So the HR one that you listed as an example is one that we did by hand to do a proof of concept of what it's supposed to look like. And so we're still trying to populate those. But the point behind this one, because originally the board asked for who does what in these departments. And so that's why I put this one together. That's why I was able to send it to you quickly because we already had it. If you want a different kind of organizational chart, we can spend time putting that together and add on the different people and their contacts and things like that.
Right, I mean, I don't think it would take much to list who's in the technology department or business department. I mean, I think I think it was County School District's website that I kind of looked at, and they had everybody's listed.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking of for something like this, to make it acceptable to anybody who wants to view it.
Okay.
Will you explain, Joe, what the color coding is? Is there a reason for the different colors?
Yeah, so I tried to do things that were specific to either instructional programs, things that were of what people would call direct service or instructional services are in orange. Other folks who were more central, so like Juan, Jenny, and Rachel, myself, and you are all in green. And then the blue were more of the business aspects of the operation. So whatever those things would be, whether it's payroll or safety or HR, technology, nutrition, facilities.
Okay. And then the other question kind of was just like how effective has the structure been? How would you say, like, from a 1 to a 10? I know like technology, it's a big area of growth.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to see like each one, like, if you were to kind of highlight where still progress to be made, or how the structure can be more effective.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you look across the top, the differing departments that are in there are all specific to kind of major parts of the organization. So if you look at teaching and learning as a, for example, that's the business we're in, right? That's curriculum instruction, that's textbooks, that's working with training, professional development, things like that. Student services always, of course, is a huge operation because we have upwards of 14% of our kids who qualify for special education services, and as you know, that number requires additional kinds of staffing, so that's a pretty large organization that goes all the way through. In title and special programs, you've heard from several of the people that we do everything from the preschool to the migrant services to FAMU to everything else that's in between, all the federal kind of fundings that come in there and the compliance pieces that are part of it, migrant, homeless, summer school, those, and the Welcome Center, which down here. Juan, in the previous iteration, it wasn't called school improvement, it was called school performance, I think is what that directorship was, and that person was in charge of supervising the principals, which then each principal, of course, supervises their assistant principal. And then in technology,
Right
this-
there, Joe,
say that again.
right there, so with assistant superintendent
Mhm.
and the building principals, and then we have a principals coach mentor, does that fall somewhere in between, or where does that role fall?
Well, that person's both a principal, coach, mentor, and the grow your own. So that person's not on this chart,
Okay,
right?
but if
And
they were, where would they?
they would fall under, actually be more under me, because they're not supervisory to the principals. So they're lateral to them.
Sorry, can you explain that again?
Sure. So when you have somebody who is supervising somebody else, they or not supervising, they do their evaluation, right? So in this case, Juan is the evaluator of the principals, right? So that's his position. We have an additional one where we added a coach, mentor person for our. We have a fairly young administrative team at both our buildings and even here in some ways. And we also were starting up a grow your own program. So that program is about building educators starting at high school in a CTE pathway through partnerships at Shemeketa to work with all our educational assistants to help them become teachers to eventually become administrators if they want to do that, if they're crazy enough to try that out. But a large part of what we have found when it comes to recruiting is that people want to work in their own communities. They want to find work there. And so grow your own programs are, if you've probably seen, there was actually in the OPB just a couple days ago, a large article about that. So we've received some specialized funding from the ODE, from their ESSER 4 to do grow your own, as well as we're looking at other grant funding opportunities to continue to bring to train our own staff to grow forward. So that person's in charge of both that and then working with our principals. So when I say lateral, this person doesn't evaluate the principals, they coach them. We have mentors and coaches for our teachers, we have mentors and coaches for actually and people in our special education program as well. So we have that for our licensed staff. We have a large team of coaches and mentors. And so having that person do that part-time as well as do the grow your own, which was a big focus of it. That's where that person is. So she would not be, I mean, I didn't list everybody who's here or not here. So that's, I think, what your question.
Why isn't she on?
Well, because I didn't put everybody on here. This is supposed to be the leadership group. So I didn't put everybody who's all doing those. So we've had another one who's not here. His position is now eliminated. They're also not on this chart, but not because they were eliminated, but because they weren't part of the leadership structure. So they were
So that
coordinator. Yeah, yeah.
She's supervised by you, superintendent.
Mhm.
Are there other roles like that where you?
No.
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 The grow your own program, that seems like a big one. Is it just her that she has?
No, it's only her. She works with Shemeketa and then Pacific, both located here in Woodburn.
So what is her role in Jamaica and Pacific?
It's part of the grow your own program. Right, so teacher training, getting people from building the CTE program at the high school for educators. That's the Shemeketa partnership, starting with Shemeketa, and then going through Shemeketa in a partnership to go from there to Pacific to develop teachers from our students. It's a pretty big movement statewide, so you'll see.
Jamaica used to have some sort of role.
Mhm.
So now
Well,
we've taken.
they have someone who does the program there that brings in people from all over, right? So at Shemeketa, because Shemeketa has campuses everywhere. So Karen is doing the work of it here in Woodburn. And she works the partnership between those people at Shemeketa and the people at Pacific, because they weren't necessarily connected before.
I'm just a little confused because I used to work for them and I'm familiar with the Grow Your Own program.
Mhm.
And I'm a little confused as to why we need a position next to yours.
So you don't think it's important for us to do a grow your own
I'm
program?
not saying that I'm confused by the way, I'm not saying that it's not important.
Oh.
I'm saying that, when Pacific students graduate, they
Mhm,
know when they want to go.
mhm.
So how does this position help?
Well, so if we go back, if you think about, when we're talking about CTE programs, one of the programs that we don't do at the high school or haven't done, and many high schools, not just Woodburn High School, is to help develop educators. We've had that program kind of come on and off a few times. You heard people tonight talking about the support network necessary to help people navigate college, right? So this Juntos thing that you just heard earlier is about creating those connections. And so when you do that within this community like this, we're trying to get kids to think about becoming educators, think about becoming EAs, and then finding ways. And part of these things is about finding ways for us to help fund some of those educations, whether through scholarships or other kinds of partnerships. And so we're spending a bunch of effort doing that, trying to build a program that we can do here and be proud of, to bring people along into our schools, because not everybody thinks about doing that. Some people are going to Pacific after that. Sometimes they don't. But that's, if you look at what's happening across the state, districts are developing these programs in order to train folks who live in their community to become educators in their system. And so that's the work that she's been doing with those. It's nice to have the resource here close by in both Chemeketa and in Pacific. And that's a large part of her work there too. So developing that, talking about having, I can't remember what they're called, they're not mentors, but like pathway coordinators or something like that, but pay a small stipend to people who work here, to then mentor people who might be in those programs.
So is that a coordinator position or is that a?
It's a
admin
coordinator.
position?
Yeah.
It would just be good for anyone to know what that looks like in here.
Sure.
Whatever else is missing.
On the technology
Mhm.
area, I know that's an area of focus. Can you give an update? We talked about it briefly when we were looking at the cybersecurity policy. What's that team look like?
Sure. When I arrived, we actually had one open position that was the program secretary. During the last, during the few months at the beginning of this year and before the turn of the new year, we had lost 2 field techs and had 2 network specialists resign or retire. In the interim, then we have hired back people in those positions, a network specialist or system tech, to take care of those things. So we had 5 positions, which we collapsed into 4. So we have a systems analyst, 2 systems techs, 2 network specialists, and we have 3 field techs. So we're actually down a position from that. Originally, you also had a coordinator, which I had converted at the beginning of the year to a director. Part of the issue with some of the folks that we prior to that, we had to pay large contracts of people to help us support the network, upwards of almost $250,000 on things that they were doing outside contracts to people because we did not have the talent to be able to do that.
So we were contracting out.
Contracting out for managing the network in the past. Yeah. Some of those contracts are still in effect because we can't get out of them, but they will eventually go away. So in the next, we're rolling through some of them now. I don't have the exact numbers of how many will go away immediately, but there are some large companies that they did some contracts in the past with that manage things that we were unable to manage. So we're putting in, of course, as replacing network equipment and doing all of those upgrades and then getting our deployment things, but we will have to rely on those outside services, which is a huge part of that.
Having the director allows for.
Having a director allows for that. You know, one of the problems with having coordinators. That's why you rotated through them so often, is because nobody does a coordinator in technology anymore. So you have directors. You also have to have some higher level systems people that understand how to manage these things. The difficulty is in finding people who want to work for less in a school district when they can make far more managing networks, which is why a lot of outside contracts have been used in the past, because we didn't have the horses to be able to actually drive it. So with the reduction of the one and improvement in the other positions, that's where we got to that. So while it's growth, it's just a changeover to some different ways of looking at it. But those are significantly important for us to fix the things that have not been working a long time. Specifically, as I spoke about before, on the website, Active Directory and things of that nature.
If I heard you right, you said we actually decreased in IT staff
Mm-hmm.
and the pay increased. Is that what I heard you say?
In two of the positions, yeah. We had 2 network specialists before, so we replaced those
You replaced them.
network specialists.
What were they?
So there was a program secretary. There were 2 field techs and 2 network specialists. Those 5 are no longer there. Those were replaced with 1 network specialist, because we already had another one, a system tech, and I can write this all out for if you want, a systems analyst and another system tech. So we went from the 4 people plus the program secretary, the 5 people, down to 4 of those, and then we have some other folks who are still here. 3 other field techs and 1 network specialist who was already here.
So it seems like a lot of new people there.
Mm-hmm.
The last time when we talked about cybersecurity, you mentioned like different people on different data.
Mm-hmm.
Are those roles like clear to everyone, or like are they still trying to define them? Like what's
No, within that team, those roles are fairly clear. They have a ticketing system, and depending upon the kind of ticket that comes in, those are automatically pushed to different kinds of technicians, right? So depending upon what the help desk ticket that comes in, hey, this has happened, it goes to certain people. Other folks are also the ones who are managing only specific parts of it. So Active Directory is one example. We have one person who's working on those pieces, or it might be on deployment. That's somebody else is doing primarily deployment, or it could be the physical hardware, so the switching equipment, as well as the wireless networks. That's somebody else's primarily. We have all of our phone systems, which are we're trying to get away from the 3 intertied phone systems down to 1 managed system. So we have somebody who works significantly on time. You would not imagine how much time is spent on phones. So each one of those areas has a level of expertise that's required. And that's kind of what we've been trying to do with that team.
who does the website fall on there?
The website's here. That's with our communications and community outreach. That's Rachel.
Oh, Rachel owns the district website.
Mm-hmm.
Is there interface between technology and her? Or?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. When we had to do a transition from the one brand to the other one, they help with that kind of transition. They do all the intertie. So we're talking about doing this AD. As soon as it gets cleaned up, that will then connect to that. And then Rachel does all the training of all the school people who manage their pages, as well as the ones who are here. So she's been working on training each group. Usually a program secretary at one of the buildings, or each of the buildings in each department, to manage their page.
So when a staff calls in and they have issues, how long before they get help?
Depends on what the issue is. So it'll go into a ticketing system. So everything is like, if I can't print, that might be one thing, or all the phones aren't working, is another thing, or you know what I mean? So it just depends on the level of difficulty of the thing. So it goes in, they try to clear out tickets as much as they can. Some things stay in for a while, other ones they deploy people out. So sometimes they'll go out in a group. If a school's having an issue, try to figure out what's happening, because it may be some other kind of failure, but I can't tell you exactly how long people wait for which.
I mean, are we that big of a district to need a system like that?
Yes.
Because I mean, I remember, many times have changed, but I remember working and I just vote and call. I don't remember his name, and he showed up
Mhm.
and he figured out what was going on.
That's because you had one person at a building.
So we don't have that now.
You had more people in the past.
So the people that we have now, where are they located?
They're located here at the district.
So they're not in the buildings.
They're not in the buildings, right? Because there aren't enough for them to go to each building, to live in each building.
And skill sets would overlap too a little bit.
Mhm. So we have 3 primary field techs, and we have 2 of the network specialists that go out and do field work as well. That's still only 5. And they're all also tasked with other things. The field techs are primarily tasked with stuff at the schools. That's the 3 of them. The 2 network specialists do a combination of networking issues as well as field calls. And then our analysts and technicians, they also do field calls. They also go out and fix things.
Do we have that same setup for maintenance, or do we have someone that each like,
Well, we have a secretary in maintenance that takes some of those requests. We do have it's not a ticketing system, but we do have a facilities maintenance request kind of a system, and then that person there works with the coordinator Noel to figure out which ones are going to get fixed. So water main breaks, that's a big one. If we're out of TP, that's something else.
But they're all centrally located.
Yes, they're all centrally located, right? And same thing with nutrition services, even though we have staff in each one of the buildings for that, of course, we do have a central person with a couple of people who do manage. That's a pretty large operation.
That's one I had a question, because to me that falls under operations. Is there a reason why it's under business here?
That's traditionally where it has been, and often falls under the business manager. It's a large financial piece because of the federal funding, and so often it fits under the business manager. It has here, it has in other districts I've worked, because of the
Cost impact?
well, yeah, well, it's actually the impact it's more of the funds that come in from the federal funds. There are a lot of funding rules in that, and so you have to be very careful when it comes to audits and things, that you're doing all of the finances properly. So a lot of that, Chelsea does a great job, but that's one of those things that direct connection with the business manager really does help.
So how is IT working so far now?
IT is working great. There are so many things that we are uncovering that we're trying to get back in working order. So there were several things that were that had been left for a while, and you might not have known it. So those are things that are working on. I'm not going to explain too much about them just because of cybersecurity, but there are certain things that we have been able to plug to fix. We have a core switch that has to get replaced. That's the one that keeps blinking off. That's the one all the other switches connect to. So, but getting to this, there were literally thousands and thousands and thousands of tickets that had just gone to multiple help desk systems that had just disappeared. And so this is getting cleaned up by this group down to one help desk system, trying to clear out all the rest of them, find out which ones are real, which ones are not. And then moving to eventually managed print services to reduce the impact as well. There's a lot to do.
What's the forecast in terms of getting to where we want to be with technology?
Well, I think if we look ahead to January of 24, we'll have the staff hardware refresh. We'll have the networks in place. We'll do a lot of the networking stuff this summer. When people go away is when technology does a huge amount of work. But they'll do some ordering of replacement hardware for students and staff over the summer, and then get those ready to kind of deploy. Part of the coming back from the pandemic and everybody having their own Chromebook, and they're all in different states, and there was not an inventory system to be spoken of that was very clear. And so we've had to implement also a new inventory system, so we actually know which assets we have, and having a system to to manage and track the assets so we know where they are. So when they either disappear, walk off, get broken, whatever. So, part of the ticketing system or part of the system around this inventory is also to know, do you have several models of one kind of thing that go wrong? Is that a lemon model? Do you have something else like that? Or are we having a problem at a certain school or maybe even a certain classroom where they keep pulling the keys off of something or, whatever that thing is. But a large part of the networking stuff will be done this summer. And then staff and student deployments will be in full swing in the winter of 24.
So for the future, we would expect like a technology report update.
Yeah, we can give you a full overview of the they can give you a full overview of the networks and things, all those things that have gone into the refresh, which is pretty significant. We are fortunate right now with our CEP level, which we've talked about before, in Title I status, that through the federal government, our hardware costs are reimbursed at 85%. So, 15 cents on the dollar. So we're able to do a lot of this network refresh. I think that's probably why a lot of those dollars were spent that way, because E-rate funds a lot of those things, and so they could use that as they could contract it out rather than have people that are doing it. But this allows us to do those. It allows us to do refreshes of hardware and telecommunications.
Speaking of communications, I know you had mentioned some of the things here are in back order as well. Just wanting to confirm, and then one of the items that is on there is a microphone, because I know I've gotten some feedback. Those online listening in sometimes find it very difficult to hear. And so I wasn't sure, and right now that you mentioned it, it came back up.
So the piece that's actually still the part that matters is actually the matrix. That's the hardest part. That's the thing that mixes all the sounds together in the video. That's the one where sometimes we have this fun little dance here. So we did this in August with that group. So we're still waiting for that one, but microphones are all part of that. Yeah, microphone mixing, pre-mixing the sound for the speaker here as well. Yeah.
You said that's coming in June.
Well, I don't know when it's coming. We're hoping it's coming. It was supposed to come a long time ago, but we can certainly check. Yeah, it's been ordered. We did all that in August.
So I'm pretty familiar with the departments and what they do. Not so much IT, because I just don't want to get IT pretty quickly. And so you mentioned that we went from several positions to less. And it sounds like either two positions were created. You said a job analyst and another one. Those weren't there before.
The names are different. So a systems technician and a systems analyst.
But the job description is the same.
Of what? Of the network technician?
No, of the systems and
the technician and the analyst do similar things, but they are different. So you're the system technician in this case is the person who does all of the provisioning, the setup of the switches, the things that are the blinking lights that pass the traffic around, as well as the wireless. So their primary role is to do the setup of those. The system analyst is the one that is tracking, having all of them actually function together. So their primary role is to make sure that all of the systems are talking to each other. So we have two of those systems technicians, and they do that. So they do deployment, they do the hardware things, they make sure that things go out, and they deal with when you get help desk tickets. Sometimes you'll see things that are a repeat, which means that something is not working for multiple people. So it's a thing that we resolve those. But the analyst is one that sort of leads the integration of the systems.
We have one or two.
I just have one analyst. Yeah.
That's typical.
Yeah, generally you have one of those who's kind of your lead on those to make sure those systems interact.
Any other questions, comments?
I guess I still don't understand why our website is so behind. From months ago.
Well, we're continuing to work on that, and this person also is in charge of having to work with each one of our schools, been trying to get our school websites up and running, but we'll continue to put out.
Which one of these positions does that?
No, that's Rachel.
Oh.
She works on all of our communications things, and she's doing the website. So, and she trains all of our secretaries across the system to work on their school websites.
So none of the IT work on this.
Correct.
That's not listed here, though.
Also correct. Yeah.
Anything else? All right, we'll do it. So item 3 is the school-based health center update.
Okay, as I said in an email out earlier today, we had gone through the process, and as you recall, the little bit of the frustration was around that we had to do one thing before we could find out the other. And so working through that, we did bring in somebody to look at the spots that we were considering. With all of the other things that were part of it, we decided the cost was going to end up being far more than the 37,000, which we thought it might be. We thought it might be a little closer, but there's in the one that we had most interest in, there's a lot of plumbing to move, which is usually your more costly things. Yeah, and then some other, because of the size of spaces, the other part that was difficult was the HVAC system, because we didn't have air in and returns in the places that have to be, so we'd end up with closed spaces. We'd have to redo HVAC. And so because of that, we're going to put a pause on the school-based health center for now. We'll look at ways to provide some services. We've been doing some of those as it is, and then we'll figure out for the following year that it may come back and decide to start up the grant again. But at this point, the construction build-out cost would just be too much. And
what the cost delta was from what we thought it was going to be and what it.
I don't. We had a couple people just come by and look, and we said, well, we've got about 40,000. What do you think? They said, no way. And they just went HVAC 8. I mean, because we had drawn out a thing. And so they said it's at least triple that probably to do because when you get into HVAC, as you know, that and plumbing is going to cost a lot, because we had to move some piping and some other things. And we tried to do it minimally, right? If we could figure out how to do the things, but as soon as you cut up some of the spaces that weren't cut that way, you run into some other problems.
So what's next? Now we lose out on that. What was remaining on that funding?
We can use the remaining of that funding through the end of this year, but then that's gone. And then we can't apply for the much larger grants, the ones that we were looking for the letter of support. There are some smaller grants that we can get to help with some of the services. But so next steps are to kind of reevaluate and see, what kind of opportunities we have. But we just didn't feel it was prudent to spend a large amount of money on that when, it's far more than that grant was going to be able to cover. And we weren't going to be able to use the other grant to do it. So the timeline is very short, and as getting people in to do construction on a short timeline increases the size of the pencil.
And so in the meantime, do we have another option for providing?
I mean, we do have folks who are doing some of that work now, but we don't have a center for it, and we'll continue to look at partnerships with other groups that can do that for us.
You mean our current staff?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things they had mentioned was, obviously with this grant ending and not moving on, if they ever wanted to reapply, they have to do it all the way from scratch.
They do.
So are there, aside from already getting an idea of what the cost is going to be, what are some of the other lessons learned, or how are they going to be able to start it where a little bit different, where they have that advantage and not end up in that same position?
Well, the good news is they've done most of the cycle, right? And it's going to be fairly similar the next time. And they've also established some conversations with people of the local parts to know who in the partners would do it and who wouldn't. They have an idea. So when they go to it next time, they'll have a better idea of how they make the connections, the kinds of concerns that we're here about connecting with parents, about the availability of services, things like that. I think a lot of that will help them as they come around the next time. Say, okay, here's what we did well, here's what we didn't do well, here's what we can eliminate and streamline and get to, space. And you'll also have a better idea of what it looks like, and you may have a different space available at the time too. So yeah, there'll be a lot of.
So do they know what exactly they're looking for in a space? So if that does end up opening up, then
I mean, it has to do with the range of services that you want to provide and the amount of people, and that just determines the number of spaces. And they were looking at trying to do it minimally because they didn't want to have to move two things. But unfortunately, the things that were built were not built with that purpose in mind, right? So I think they have a good idea what that can look like, and there may be some other opportunities. We had looked at several other facilities. When the district was looking at preschool facilities, they went all over town to look for a church or another kind of a building that they could reuse. And that was hard. So there's not a lot of commercial property. Often commercial stuff's easier because it's wide open and you can throw in some pony walls and call it good. But when you have existing spaces, especially when you're looking at modular classrooms, they're called portables, but you don't ever move them, so I don't like to call them portable. But the modular classroom, they're pretty purpose built, right? And so when you mess with those, when you have to do HVAC things, they're not as easy to build just because they're not really built to be anything different than a 4 classroom pod. So your hallway is your hallway, and so you have to start knocking things out and you get into structural issues. But I think the lessons learned are how many people do you want to do, and then you can actually look for a space that size. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And what location is this?
There was a location at the high school. I can't remember the name of the building. It's a modular on the backside. It escapes me at the moment.
Portable?
Say again?
Portable?
Yeah,
We were looking at portable.
at the modular that's there now. Yes.
How many do we have in there?
We have that one. I mean, some of the buildings look like they're modular, but I think we just have the one off the backside, off the corner on the exit out here at 214.
I used to teach in those, so I don't see how that could be considered for a space like that.
Well, each classroom is 900 square feet, right? So if you look at a classroom size, so you're talking about 3,600 square feet if you had just 4 classrooms. So if you reconfigured that into spaces, into smaller spaces, because that one actually happens to have a small kitchen space that you could use for lab, because you have to have certain electricity, electrical things. The plumbing part was where you have to put bathrooms, or if you were going to do anything dental at some point, where you'd build that. But 3,600 square feet is pretty large.
For one modular space,
So a modular is, in this case, there were 4 classrooms.
so we're gonna combine those 4 spaces.
They want to combine, but not combine all of them. So some of them would be cut. So if you take a 400 or a 900 square foot classroom, 900 and some square feet, and you cut it in half, and you have 2 400 square foot spaces. Problem is, if you do too much rectangular, they become, skinny and long. And so as you start to look at it more, you may have to make more squarish spaces, which gives you fewer out of the same space. And that's why the costs continue to increase. So the headline is, we're not doing it, and we'll reassess and figure out what's next.
We have no board action items tonight. And then for the board calendar, we currently have on the calendar our next regular board meeting on the 23rd of May. And then end of May, we have a work session and the first budget meeting. On the 30th. We have no future agenda items. We have a list from previous meetings, so.
Yeah, so I think one of the items on that list that isn't on there, but I think is important because I see Sonia, and I know last year at some point she presented, sorry, I don't want to share the spot, but she shared about summer school. And so I don't think we've had that this year, and so it would be good to know what summer school is gonna look like, and she also talked about budgeting summer school, and so I like to know what that looks like.
Okay.
And if that could be for the next session, whenever that would fit in there, I think that's probably a higher priority than
Okay.
whatever else is in your list.
Are you thinking about it for the 23rd for the regular meeting, or do you want it for the workshop?
When would we usually do that? In the next session or when? I would say the 23rd.
I'm looking over at Sonia.
Or the 30th. Sonia,
Let me
Preference?
check calendar, I think, what's that, sorry. Um. 23rd or 30th?
The 30th. There too.
either. You can check the date.
30th would be better.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So. You want to take a break before we enter executive session? Maybe I could use a break. Yeah, okay.
You asked
Let's
me.
do that. Quick break and then.
Okay.
Yeah, just to give a timestamp.
Okay, so. We're back in open session. Figuring out what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Did you know?
I took them here. And this is to review CBD.
Discussion on board policy CDB, recruitment and appointment of superintendent.
So to just assist the board with some process, I prepared an outline that summarized some of the executive session rules as well as policy CBD, which I believe that you have before you. And so I will provide a copy of the outline that I've got.
Yes. We can share one.
And then, no, I've got it with your. Pass up and.
There, no? Okay, same one.
Yep, same.
Same.
Do you have one? Somebody have one? Okay, we've got it.
Okay.
All right.
Good, excellent, okay.
Oh, I got it.
Okay, so,
Do we need to, kind of have Joe speak to that, or we can take another decision before this conversation, or?
well, I think it was publicly announced, so, I mean, I think Dr. Morlock will need to send in a formal resignation notice, but it was formally, I think it was announced to board members individually. I would imagine. So, yeah. So I would expect that the resignation letter could come within a week or so.
Yeah, we actually need to discuss the provisions within there, so we'll take a look at the contract, so you know that there are a couple of options within there we need to look at, whether it's a mutually agreed upon date. And if so, or if it's a 60-day timeline, if the board wishes to retain me for the full 60 days until the end of that. So that's something that we'll have to discuss, and I'll explain that all. Send it to you in an email so you understand that, and then we can go from there.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So the 6 days would be starting.
60 days from the time of the notice, of the resignation notice.
Yesterday?
No, the time that I actually send in, so if I send the resignation tomorrow, then it'll be 60 days from there.
When you send a letter.
Right. Or if we come upon a mutually agreed upon date, then we can go with that. But that's within the contract, so we have to just follow
So when
that.
can we expect that?
Well, I think that's the discussion. We have to decide whether it's going to be a mutually agreed upon date at the June 30, or you're going to decide as a board, you're going to decide to hold for 60 days, and that's.
We can decide to do that, but that's an independent of your starting date at WSB, right? So what?
Yeah, so, you know, you have two board policies that are relevant in this situation. One is policy CBB, recruitment and appointment of superintendent. The key language in that policy is that the board shall develop and adopt the standards, meaning the candidate qualities and work experience criteria. So the application, screening and hiring process, and policy directives promote from within or state or national search to be used in hiring the superintendent or interim superintendent at a meeting open to the public and at which the public has had an opportunity to comment.
Another part of that board policy provides that the board can seek the services of a consultant to assist the board in screening candidates and encouraging the filing of applications. And of course, the final decision rests with the board, and the board must appoint the superintendent by a majority vote of the board members at a publicly noticed meeting. Are there, within this policy, there's, I think, there are a range of possible approaches that you could take. I'm not a superintendent search firm expert, but I just want to call out that it's an expandable. I've seen this policy used, not at Woodburn, of course, but I've seen it used in other places for expedited processes and for much more fulsome processes. So I think it's a good board policy in that way. Policy CBA you have
Can I ask
is
a question on it?
yes, yeah.
Just because, so the end of the first paragraph says, for the public to have had an opportunity to comment. Is that different from just our standard public
No.
comment? Okay.
That's a normal, at a regularly noticed meeting. So you have to approve the superintendent contract at a regularly noticed meeting where there's public comment on that.
Okay.
That's all. Mhm. Yeah. And you have a board policy on CBA called Qualifications and Duties of the Superintendent. And those, I think, are kind of, this policy is something of a foundation for what you expect and the minimum qualifications of a superintendent. And so you could, whoever may be working with you, or whether you choose to do it yourself in terms of the superintendent criteria, this is a document that will be important for you to cross-reference and look at. And I've got a copy. I'll pass it out in just a second. The other piece, and I'll skip the outline on if you retain a search firm. I don't know that we need to go into that right now, but there are some ways of going about that. You have board policies related to the selection of a personal services, contractor, and that needs to be done in line with procurement law. And we can cover that once we get to that part of the discussion. I also wanted to alert you that in terms of executive sessions, you can go into executive session to consider the employment of a chief executive officer. Once you have met certain prerequisites, including announcing the vacancy and advertising it, adopting regular hiring procedures, and the standards, criteria, and policy directives that were referred to in the other board policy. And those things have to be adopted at a public meeting. The typical way that happens is there's a profile of the candidate or the criteria and standards that you're looking at. And that a draft is put in the board packet for people to comment on, and then it's ultimately adopted by the board at a meeting, as well as a timeline for how you envision the recruitment to unfold. And again, this is expandable, so it's a flexible kind of concept. The executive sessions can't be used for considering general employment policies or talking about salary in connection with the hiring of that individual. And you can't take final actions in an executive session. You can decide to winnow down a field of candidates to a slate of finalists. You can decide to negotiate with your first choice. That's not considered a final decision, and you could make that decision in executive session. However, a decision to formally offer a person a job is something that needs to be made in an open session. And these are items that I could assist you with as over time. And so when there's closer in time to whatever the board is deciding to do. In terms of subcommittees of the board, this is a really effective way to get work done. So a subcommittee would be 2 or more members of the board. And however, the one piece about subcommittees is that those are committees of the board, and they are subject to public meetings law as well. So you've got to notice those meetings and all that. One board staff person working on a draft is not a subcommittee. So that's another, you could potentially decide how to divvy up the work and say, you do this part, you do this part, and we'll load those into the board packet when the time comes. Just some ideas for you. In terms of decision points that lie ahead for you, I would recommend, I've outlined a couple things. You need to consider that your desired timeline, and your goals is the goal to hire an interim and then conduct a traditional search for a permanent superintendent. Is it to just go immediately into conducting a search and selecting a permanent superintendent? Appointment is a variation of that second strategy. And all of those options require that the board go in and develop and adopt the standards and the criteria and the policy directives. So that doesn't really change either way. So unfortunately, what I'm telling you is you'll need another few meetings here. Another decision point you'll need to talk about is who will manage the process for you, or how will you get the work done? Will you engage a consultant firm? Will you lean on your human resources department or other staff members? Will you, decide to do everything as the board as a whole, or work with subcommittees, or just single, hey, board chair, please handle XYZ. The scope of the search and the criteria, that's really more of a conversation for later. But that is one of your first orders of business once you get through some of these logistical pieces, is what you have to figure out what's the scope of the search that we're looking at. Are we aiming for national, local, or internal only recruitment? That's legitimate to talk about. And then the application and the selection process itself. So all of those are things that should be ultimately written down and will be approved by the board at a future meeting. And with that, I don't have any more to add.
We'll need to get this time respect to the directives completed. And we had our following meeting. I think the timeline we all understand that is, we need to expedite and streamline this process, because we have the next year starting up pretty soon. So if it's okay with you all, I would propose to draft the standards, criteria, and directives, and we can review as a board at our next meeting, make changes. Between now and then, we should expect the resignation letter from Superintendent Morlock, and we can declare the vacancy and adopt the standards, criteria, and directives at that point in time. And then we can discuss some of these other items. Correct.
I think one absolutely. First of all, that is an option. And one question I would have for you is, how do you intend to get the work done in terms of, are you wanting to engage a search firm, or are you planning to run this yourself? And I only ask that question because it would be important for that. That is a very early stage component of this. So
I'd like to add something. So when we hired Superintendent Morlock, we used OSBA, and there was a clause in the contract that we signed with them that they guaranteed that the superintendent would stay for at least 2 years if we followed a transition plan. And so I did reach out to OSBA today to figure out if the board is on that transition plan, and you are. And so they would offer the search, and I think we would have to just cover expenses, which is mileage or meals, and maybe marketing materials. But they would cover the cost of one search. They said if the board decided to do interim, quickly appointed interim, and then do a national search, then it would be a separate cost for the interim, and then they would do the bigger search under that same contract that we had already. So that's what OSBA said.
So going back to your question on if we want to use a search firm, OSBA could act as that search firm. That's what I'm hearing.
I think so. One variation on the idea that you put out would be that the board chair could work with an OSBA consultant on those same documents. I mean,
I don't remember Jenny having been.
We had the board chair work with OSBA.
That work for everyone. So we will engage OSBA to help us draft these documents.
Great, and reach out if you need anything from me. And OSBA is really expert at this, so. But if you need me, sure.
Thank you. The only remaining piece would be this special meeting where we discuss this, how people found it working. So the next scheduled meeting is later in May, right?
23rd.
The 23rd, do we want to meet before then? To announce the vacancy and get the process going, or are we okay with waiting until then?
I'm okay if we wait for the 23rd and declare and present the recommendation. I'm okay with that unless there's urgency and higher times, and the whole board has been involved in the process of hiring, so the only process that you'll be doing alone with OSBA is the drive.
Any other things? Waiting to the 23rd.
Because instead that we would have done this online, right?
We will have everything that day.
It feels short, but if everybody's wanting to do it, that's okay.
Okay, so on the 23rd, we can review those documents and talk about following steps. Are there any other questions, comments?
I was gonna ask Jenny, do we have enough time to call a meeting like Thursday, this coming Thursday or the following week to do all this, but you have to also work with OSBA, and so we don't want to give you like a short notice to work on all this. So if next week works best for you for all of us to meet, it's only a week before the parents meeting. So.
And you only need 24 hours to notice a meeting, but yeah, there's another
time.
piece of that too.
Anytime, next time. So if we meet next week, it would only be a week shy from our regular meeting. So,
Let's continue with schedule. Okay. It works. All right, so there are no further questions, comments, we can adjourn this meeting.
Thank you.
That's